o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As customary, we'll observe a moment of silence. I would announce that this meeting is being recorded and televised by WHCA. I will seek a motion for approval of bill and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I seek a motion for acceptance of correspondence in the read file.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public forum, if anyone would like to stand up and speak now, something that's not on the agenda. Just
Name and address.
Good evening. My name is David Forth. I live on 236 Pleasant Street. Today I will be speaking as an individual in our community and not on behalf of any committee or board. I am speaking today to provide the chairman and the Board of Selectmen the opportunity to elaborate on the information I have received and am about to provide to our community. Last week it came to my attention that Chairman Lamatino was arrested for supposedly impersonating a police officer. I sent the public records request to Officer Gillis of the Abington Police Department.
out of order. Out of order. Have a seat, Mr. Forth.
All right, I will post this on Whitman Pride if you guys don't want to hear it there.
Feel free.
Okay.
Just to let you know, Mr. Forth, you do not have your facts straight. So why don't you have a seat, and you should maybe...
I have
well,
evidence from the Abington Police.
I'm glad you do.
This is from the Chief of Police.
So if you did have it, you clearly know you're mistaking, and you just slandered somebody.
No.
Yes.
Ongoing
Have a seat,
criminal
Mr.
investigation from the Chief of Police.
Have a seat, Mr. Forth.
All right, Mr. Lamatino.
Have some class, too.
You should have some class. You're the one who got arrested.
No, I did not, sir.
No.
Yeah. So to clarify on this issue, that is not the truth, and that's pretty clear. What Mr. Forth has is an accident. My entire family, we were hit, and apparently there are charges being pressed through a magistrate's hearing, which is called a show cause hearing, to prove probable cause and no arrest. Arrest is only after arraignment, Mr. Forth, and that has not happened. So what you did was sit up here and lie. Do it again, and I'll have you removed from the meetings.
I have evidence, Mr. Lamatino.
No, you have no evidence, Mr. Forth. You have none. So go ahead and post it on Whitman Pride. Go ahead and blab your mouth now. But you don't, because the fact is there is no evidence. Have a nice night. Say another word, I will have the chief escort you out. Is there anybody else that would like to speak or slander somebody in public forum?
It's not slander, but true.
Oh, no. Okay, and if it's not true, what is it?
Why are we having a dialogue, Mr. Chairman?
We shouldn't be, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to defend myself
Should be removed.
to that. What's that?
If he continues to interrupt, you should remove
If you interrupt again, you will be removed. Do you understand that?
I understand.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? No? Seeing no other business, I'll seek approval of meeting minutes for open session of August 25th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It's 7:05, and I would call up, it's about time for a public meeting to discuss the application of Edward Gergis,
That's me, yes.
doing business as Edwards Transportation for a livery license and a livery driver's certificate based on the premises located at 15 Hilltop Road.
Yes, sir.
Come on up and have a seat. And this is your time to kind of explain what you're going to do and get a little promotion for yourself if you'd like.
Good evening, everybody. I have my car is black Suburban, livery plate, and I would ride from everywhere in Massachusetts and outside in Massachusetts, like to the airport or Jersey or New York, everywhere.
Okay, standard livery service, and you're going to be running that out of 15 Hilltop Road.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand if the board approves this, it'll be subject to the receipt of the licenses to the town?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I would seek a motion for approval of Mr. Edwards' transportation.
So moved.
I will second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. And good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on. Chairman's report, COVID-19 update. Chief Clancy, unfortunately, fortunately, he's down at the National Fire Academy receiving training. So I once again,
Leave or wait?
oh, yeah, you're all set.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice night, guys.
Yeah.
Have a nice night.
He did pass along some information regarding our COVID positivity rate. There were 350 PCR tests conducted, resulting in 34 positive cases, which brings our positivity rate up to 9.71%. Along the lines with this, I also received an email this week from our Board of Health Chair, Danielle Clancy, that read, and I paraphrase, that the status of COVID-19 has changed, and what she would like to do is utilize town facilities rather than pay for outside facilities to conduct vaccination clinics. She's requesting use of the Town Hall Auditorium to conduct COVID-19 vaccination clinics with the Moderna bivalent vaccine at the proposed times, assuming that the Town Hall Auditorium is open. The times would not be the exact times of the clinic being run, but these are times she's requesting to provide enough time for setup and disinfection time of the Town Hall Auditorium.
Excuse me, could somebody turn the volume off? I can't hear anybody.
There is no volume, we're just live.
Okay,
Do you want to come up a little closer?
I could. Just no speakers, okay. I'll come
The
closer.
speakers are?
There is speakers.
I thought there was.
I thought there was.
You can turn them on?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're connected to the new system.
Test, test.
I'm getting like every other word.
Speaker there and this one there.
All right.
Only as you get some feedback if you turn it on.
Follow up on that?
Could you just speak up a little more, Randy? Just you a soft voice.
Okay.
We never been accused of that, Mr. Chairman.
Really?
Thank you. All right, times listed would not be for the actual clinic times, so I don't want anyone to get confused with that might be watching. It's giving a time for total setup and disinfection time of the Town Hall Auditorium. Ms. Clancy is seeking the date of September 29th, which is a Thursday from 8:15 to 2 o'clock, October 21st, which is a Friday from 8:15 to 2 o'clock, November 30th, which is a Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 7:45 p.m., and the last date being December 15th, which is a Thursday from 8:15 a.m. to 2 p.m. Barring any conflicts with the auditorium, I'd be seeking a motion for this.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have a question. Okay,
Discussion?
now this is the upstairs auditorium or the downstairs?
It's the auditorium,
The main one?
yes.
Would it be better to do downstairs because of handicap and coming into handicap exit and entrance?
I haven't had a chance to talk with Danielle yet, but I had talked to Todd DeCudo, who's our new facilities director, and he had a good suggestion that might be worth looking at, although I would suggest we approve the auditorium use and then revisit if it's necessary. The library
Meeting room.
meeting room has
A separate exit.
both an entrance and exit and can easily be set up in partitions. So I don't know if they considered that, and I don't know if they really have any sense of how many people we're going to have. But certainly we can accommodate in the auditorium. And that was their first request. And like I said, I haven't had a chance to talked to her about it, so I asked that the board go ahead with the plan for the auditorium at this time.
And if the situation changes, we can just redo it. Yeah,
Or we could just
Announce a different venue if
just
that's
vote for the
case.
use of town facilities designation to be determined.
Good.
very good.
I'll change my motion to that.
And I will second that change. Very good.
Okay. All right. Seeing a motion and a second, we've gone through discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New business. Michelle Lamattina. It's here to talk about the third annual DFS Decorating for Scholars event.
You want to sit there,
You can use either one. They're both on.
I'll sit.
till you feel comfortable.
Hello, thank you. I'm here on behalf of Whitman Dollars for Scholars. As you know, we've held a tree lighting in the park for the last 2 years. It's one of our larger fundraisers of the year. So we would like to do it again this year on Friday, December 9th, Saturday, December 10th, and Sunday, December 11th. The only change that we were going to request from the board is that we would possibly be able to have use of the town hall auditorium on Saturday to coincide with the tree lighting at night, but during the afternoon to have a vendor type affair. We did have vendors last year, and they were going to be on Saturday, but the weather postponed it to Sunday. The year before, we had issues with the weather also, so obviously one of these years we're probably going to get hit with a blizzard. But feedback was a lot more people wanted to be vendors and wanted to participate and bring out their homemade goods and, signs and different crafts they make. But they didn't want to be outside in the cold all day. So we were kind of thinking of doing, some inside, some outside. DFS has used the auditorium before. We had a vendor fair actually in the spring a few years. And we always have student volunteers at the events helping, but we also have adult volunteers. So there would be adults on hand all day in the auditorium with them. We would ask that there would be no charge to this because all the money we raise goes directly to scholarships for the kids in Whitman and Hanson. Saturday, again, we plan on having food trucks. We're going to have performers. If there's anybody watching that has, any ties to the high school band or chorus or any of those things, we're looking for performers for the event throughout the day, and we always have a special guest appear. In years past, I've been in touch with Chief Hanlon and Chief Clancy just to coordinate, that they know everything that's going on also. So I think that's it. We've had, the only issue we had last year, someone stole a tree on us. But other than that, people love it. And, we try to make it bigger every year to try to raise a little bit more money each year. Last year, we raised a little over $10,000. So that's huge for us. So, and I think it's just a good thing for the community, whether it's for scholarships or not. And we invite, Boy Scouts, I've talked to them. They want to help out this year a little bit more, and a few other groups. So we're hoping that would be okay.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a superb idea.
All right.
You want to make that motion? We'll make it. I'll make that motion that we allow this to go on, and that
Use of the auditorium.
use of the
if
auditorium.
necessary.
And,
I'm not aware of any conflicts, so you should be okay.
Right,
Okay.
I'll second it.
yeah. Community events are outstanding. You can't get any better.
So one quick question, Frank. When would we know if it was 100% we could use it on that Saturday? Just because I don't want to
Confirm it
advertise.
tomorrow.
Oh, okay. No rush.
I'll have Lori check the schedule, and to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing going on
Okay.
that day. We probably would have held it for Christmas anyway.
Right. Okay. Okay. So on behalf of Dolls for Scholars, thank you.
All right. And so we have a motion and a second. We've had some discussion. Is there any further discussion? No? All right. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay,
Congrats. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is act on the request of Elena Morrow on behalf of the Southeastern Philharmonic Orchestra for permission to use the Town Hall Auditorium for the purpose of conducting a free Christmas concert on Sunday, December 4th, 2022, and a free spring concert on Sunday, April 23rd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, act on the resignation of Fred Gilmetti from the position of member of the Board of Appeals effective August 25th, 2022.
I'll make that motion. We regret.
I'll second that.
Comment, Fred Gilmetti has been on that board a lot of years, and I appreciate what he has done for the town. He's moved to North Carolina in his retirement, so I thank Fred and what he's done for the town.
And I would also add, Fred Gilmetti, I think, has been involved in some one way or another of town bodies and organizations since I was running around Regal Park. So definitely thank him very much for his service, and he definitely put his time in, I'll tell you that. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, act on the request of Robert Curran to be appointed to the position of member of the Board of Appeals for the remainder of a 5-year term through June 30th, 2027, in order to fill an existing vacancy.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Nope. Thank you, Bob.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item, take action to appoint Robert Piccirilli to Outdoor Advertising Division through June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
So, second.
If anybody doesn't know who Robert Piccirilli is, that is our new building inspector. All right, we have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Next up, act on the request of Chief Clancy to dispose of a 2002 Ford
Hear it now?
450.
So moved.
Second.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Tim couldn't be here, but what he's looking to dispose of is a vehicle that we received as a gift approximately 12, 13 years ago from Fallon Ambulance. There's a CERT team starting up that has no vehicle. This is a vehicle we would have probably been retiring anyway, and it seemed like a good outreach to another community to transfer the vehicle to their CERT group. And there's nothing I'm aware of that would complicate this process.
Okay. So do we have a motion and second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, we've already discussed the COVID clinics. Next up, I received an email from Mr. Kane about budget planning. I think it's something that we've, we have talked about getting back to some form of normal business. Obviously, the budget creeps up on us faster than we hope sometimes. So, Mr. Kane, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've obviously been thinking about this for a while, and I wanted to support some part of the strategic plan in the budget forecasting, creating a financial forecast that we can, one, we can analyze and discuss, and two, that we can share with the public is something I think is really important. So I had talked to Mr. Lynham, and then I reached out to Ken Lytle and talked to him about potentially starting just a small working group. I mean, he and I can work together, just meet a couple times a month, just to check in on this priority. I think he's already made some progress on this area anyways. So it's just something that I think to keep on the forefront of where we want to get to when budget season starts so that we can use it then. I think it's a really important tool that will really help us with some big decisions. Obviously, the the operational budget is one thing, but also thinking about debt in the future is obviously on the mind of a lot of people. So having some sort of tool that really lays that out with a number of assumptions, I think would be helpful. The schools are putting together a similar document. It doesn't have to be the exact same, but I think contrasting the document that we put together with what the schools are doing and creating some overlap would be helpful for everybody. So.
On a note on that, Mr. Anderson, the chair of the Finance Committee, was in talking with Frank, and I believe in their meeting tonight, they're going to start putting together their requests out to department heads for their budget for the next year. So they want to get that process started early. We can do the same and see what we come up with it. That way we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, I think I know that just the town over the last couple of months, we've been kind of swamped with personnel issues and that kind of stuff, but if some of us can stay ahead of the game and look a little bit to the future, I think that'll be helpful for some of the big decisions we have to make.
Main thing is to run the numbers and see what the departments need, what it takes to run the town.
Yeah. I would like, as a second priority, I would like to support the development of the capital plan. I know that there's already been a lot of work done, and maybe reaching out to Don Essen and connecting with him, seeing if we can do any work to help support that effort. I really want to focus on the financial forecast first, but if we can support the development of a capital plan so we could formally share that with the community, I would really like to do that. Again, that's in line with the strategic plan as well.
And another note on that, with our new facility manager, Todd, you might want to relate that to him, and he could probably start, once he surveys all the buildings, come up with some suggestions.
He's working on that now.
Huh?
He's working on that now.
So here's what I do think a working group to provide feedback to the board on maybe a monthly basis is great. I do think the smaller groups tend to be the more things get done. So without objection, my recommendation would be Mr. Kane, Mr. Lytell, and the interim TA, in just preparing things for updates, periodic updates to the board. The capital improvement plan, I would actually, again, if I was going to recommend it, let Mr. Decuto kind of get in and see maybe another month or so to see what he's developed, what he's going to take to
We still on
that board, and then possibly set that up.
Yeah, I'm not looking to overwhelm anybody, so I think I'm really happy he's in that role, and it's great to hear that he's made some development in that area. So I have no problem like waiting a little bit. I'm thinking more if I can support him in any way and just, that kind of thing. But, sure.
All right. So I don't think we need a vote for the working group.
It's an ad hoc committee. You don't want to be involved in meeting and posting and doing all those things.
Right,
So it's essentially a work group.
right. So we have established the working group. Good?
Thank you.
All right. All right, old business. Act to appoint members to serve on a search committee for a new town administrator. I believe we,
Mr. Chairman, I take pleasure in announcing that Beth Stafford, a former selectman and school committee member, has reached out and volunteered to serve on that group. And I just want to say, I think it's a great opportunity to bring the new and old experiences together to focus on hopefully moving quickly to identify candidates.
That's a constant theme, isn't it?
Yes.
and Beth is definitely, well, Mrs. Stafford is definitely more than qualified to assist.
That's really good to hear. That will offer a lot of perspective.
And I think I think we have always tried to have a diverse selection on our hiring groups, and I think that keeps in line with that. Okay.
So you may want to announce the names and then vote.
All right, so the members of the Town Administrative Search Committee will be Fire Chief Tim Clancy, Mrs. Beth Stafford, Interim Town Administrator Frank Lineham, Finance Committee Chair Rick Anderson, Selectman Kyle Kowalski, Dr. Kowalski. Member at large will be Mr. John Galvin. And that rounds out the committee. Six?
Six, yeah.
Six. That rounds out that committee. So I'll read them again. It's Dr. Kowalski, Beth Stafford, Frank Lineham, John Galvin, Tim Clancy, and Mr. Rick Anderson. Seek a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Okay,
that's my short hand.
I got you. Picked it up. Okay, next up under old business is marijuana business host agreement and related social equity policies and procedures. We also have counsel here to help us guide us through this.
Give you a whole table to spread out on.
Well, hopefully I don't get too many questions, but thanks for having me.
Well, no kidding.
So as you know, the town of Whitman adopted a new zoning bylaw at the annual town meeting this year that will allow for the zoning of marijuana businesses in the town of Whitman. That bylaw is still currently at the Attorney General's office, the municipal law unit. We're waiting on approval. They sought an extension from Town Council's office. Michelle McNulty granted the extension to October 5th, so we should know by October 5th whether that's approved or not. There are no major issues. I've spoken with the Attorney General's office. No major issues to be worried about. The bylaw, and in large part, I think is going to be approved. There's just a couple unique provisions that they're taking a look at, but that won't have any effect on the rest of the bylaw if they have any issues. So we can expect by October 5th to have that bylaw approved and effective in the town of Whitman. In the meantime, the state also passed new legislation that pretty drastically changes some of the provisions of the marijuana statutes, especially concerning community impact fees, and that required a substantial revision to a form host community agreement that we were working with. We've, over the summer, we've had a team that's met with some interested applicants, people who have reached out and said, we've identified locations and we're trying to move forward with licensing. And, first they have to get a host community agreement. And while the town can't enter into one of those until you have your zoning bylaw in place, we have been able to speak with them and keep things moving forward to keep things or get things ready in anticipation of that bylaw being approved. Another change that the legislation made was to require that prior to entering into a host community agreement, a town would have to adopt social equity policies and procedures. And the Cannabis Control Commission is charged with issuing model policies and procedures, but they have not done that yet. I don't have a timeline for when they're going to do that. But if the town of Whitman is to enter into an HCA, then we first have to get in place some policies and procedures that meet the minimum standards of whatever the Cannabis Control Commission is going to pass. Social equity under the law, just generally, because I see at least one confused face, is addressing the impacts on people who have been communities that have been disparately impacted by marijuana prohibition in the past. So it's a pretty broad term. I don't have any specific suggestions for you at this point, but I do have a policy that I've recommended that I believe is in your packet that would essentially adopt whatever minimum standards the CCC issues when they issue them. If there are any other ideas for policies and procedures that you want to include, those can be included as well. But those are before you tonight. I think that those can be adopted before your bylaw is in place. I don't think, they're not going to matter one way or another until your bylaw is approved, but I think they could be adopted tonight in advance of the bylaw being approved. The host community agreement, on the other hand, obviously we wouldn't sign with anyone, assuming it's, in the form that you want, until the bylaw is in place. Now, the reason for bringing you an unsigned host community agreement or a draft host community agreement that does not identify a specific marijuana business that it would be entered into is that I think we anticipate that whatever we come up with in terms of a host community agreement is going to be used for every marijuana business. Everybody's going to get the same opportunity if they're opening in a business in Whitman. So I think that having one form agreement that, this is the agreement, this is what we're looking to enter into is a good idea. The team has worked well on that. We've made quite a bit of progress. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the applicants too about, what they thought was workable and not. We talked about that. We incorporated some, made some modifications that we think make the agreement more workable. And that's why we're here before you tonight, is to find out if you have any questions, any comments, any ideas to keep this moving forward.
Anyone?
I do. Okay, Peter. I read through it. If there's a list of things that they will be held responsible as far as if we need more police officers, fire department, streets and roads repairs, things, different things that because of the increased use, they need to pay for it, or at least come up with something that'll cover it. Like if we need to get a couple extra police officers, because we may want to have a police officer stationed at the point where they're selling it or something like that. I don't know. That depends on the state if they want that, or if either chief wants that. My question is, if we put down some rules and regulations and requirements and the cost of these businesses paying for them, if for some reason we feel that like say we say, okay, we need 3 more police officers, but then we find out we need actually 5 more. Is that incorporated so that it goes up automatically? We can charge them for that, or they? So, so I can respond to that. So the cap, there is a cap on community impact fees, okay.
And it's at 3%. It's always been 3%. Okay. And so if the impact on the town is more than 3% of the business's gross sales, then it's still capped at 3%. They're not required to pay for whatever impacts, financial impacts above 3%. But one of the big changes from the previous version of the law is that what most communities were doing was saying that you will pay 3%, and we will use it on the impacts on the town. The big change to the law this summer was that we now have to send them documentation of what the impacts on the town are first. So if the impact is, using your hypothetical, we have to hire 3 more police officers as a result of, let's just say, the businesses in the aggregate, and you all share equally in that responsibility, whether it's 1 or 5 of them, then...
Same with fire if we need more.
Yeah, then we would have to show to them what those increased costs are, and why they're related to their business. This is an impact from your business, and it would be capped at 3% of their gross sales, whatever they have to pay for. So whether it's 3 or 5, if you say you find out you need more, well, this is an annual fee, and it can last for up to 8 years under the new legislation. So for 8 years, every year we would look at what the actual impacts are for that prior year. And we document the costs, we provide them with the information, and the idea is that then unless they challenge something that we've provided to them, they'll then pay the impacts up to 3% of their gross sales.
And my other question is, streets and roads, if it has an impact on that. Most of the industries the applicants that we're looking at is on Route 18. Mm-hmm. That's a state highway. Yeah. If there's potholes, the state pays it. Mm-hmm. So does the town have to reimburse the state?
I don't know about the answer to that question, but I don't think that if it's not if it's a cost that does get imposed on the town, whether it's direct or indirect,
Yeah.
as a result of that, then I would be including it in the. It's still an impact, whether
Right.
just because it's indirect. So I'm not sure whether we have to reimburse the state, but I would say that it would be an impact included in that impact fee.
That's all I had.
Anyone else?
I would just add that Mr. Kane and I worked with Peter and Frank for the last meeting on this for quite a while, and Mr. Kane had an excellent suggestion that we included in on this potential impacts, and it was the costs of substance use and abuse prevention programs in education.
Yeah.
I think that was a.
Isn't that in there?
It is in there now. It was not in.
Okay.
It was, yeah, something Sean brought to the table with his experience as an educator.
Yeah, it was great to work with Peter and honestly the businesses, the business associates that came that we met with, and also the lawyers that we worked with on their behalf were extremely professional, and it was great to. We had a number of meetings, and I learned a ton, and they were really cooperative. It was nothing was like there was no tension at all. So I feel like the agreement that we came up with is really a positive one, and the potential businesses are really, I think,
Comfortable with it?
uncomfortable, and I think they really held a level of professionalism that I was impressed with. But specifically for this community impact, the substance use education aspect of community impact and how you quantify that, I think that's something we can talk about more in the future, but it's something that I think is a responsibility on us as a community to do. We're going to bring this into a community that hasn't been here before, so to be proactive about bringing these programs into the schools in an effective way that can really protect our kids in a way that will give them the knowledge or awareness about this stuff, it would be really, I think it really makes sense. So the agreement kind of reflects that.
If I could just add that, so, as I was talking to Sean and Justin and working on this agreement, we didn't make this out of whole cloth. We looked at agreements that are already out there to see what people are already doing and see what's working for them. And we talked to Abington about what's working for them. And we, there's some uncertainty from new legislation changing community impact fees and really changing the whole equation there and giving marijuana businesses a lot more power in that regard, where they don't just have to accept whatever the town tells them. You have to prove it. But in coming up with how we were going to modify post-community agreements that were out there before this legislation, we looked at, okay, well, what has the CCC said is okay? What have they approved or said is an actual impact on a town that can be charged for? So I did look, and the the Cannabis Control Commission specifically says that, after Sean brought it up, I took a look, and it says, they specifically say that substance use and abuse prevention programs are something that can be included in impact fees. So that's kind of how we went about it, is we looked at other communities, we saw what they were doing, and we tried to make this, it's something that is not totally unfamiliar to the applicants and their council, because they've been doing this for several years. But we tried to make this something that we know will, I should have said before, another requirement of the law is that this now has to be approved by the Cannabis Control Commission. All host community agreements have to be. So we tried to make something that we believed will be approved by them, but will also work for the town of Whitman.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is all well and good, and thank you guys for working on it. Let's just keep in mind, too, that Whitman Hanson Will is an organization that can be of great use during this transition process to adding marijuana businesses to the community. I mean, it's an organization that's been here for a while. We do subsidize it in some ways, and there is a lot of work, education, counseling, etc., going on in our district through that organization.
And they have done some great work, both communities, and anything, obviously, if there's some way we can help that organization out, or we can commingle them and get some more funding somehow, I think that benefits everyone.
That organization has come up specifically in some of our discussions with the applicants, although recent legislative changes mean we can't directly include donations to local organizations as a,
No,
Within the
I'm
agreement.
saying that
But the
the
township.
people in that organization can be a resource as we're trying to figure out what to do and how to.
Exactly what I
handle
was
it.
thinking, for sure. Yeah.
I have a question, if anybody knows, but do towns have, that do it, if there's an issue, do they have classes, not in the schools, but so much like town hall, you know, if parents want to bring their kids in and they talk about, you know, the use of marijuana and the right and wrongs of it and whatever, you know, I'm just wondering if towns hold meetings of some sort, an open meeting,
There are resources available for that, for sure.
just a thought.
But I think it's this kind of legislation that will make those things more readily available.
All right. You don't need any votes from us. Oh,
I think we're forgetting that, excuse me, I don't know your name. My name is Mary Fox, and I live right in Whitman, and I was certainly not for, and never will be for, marijuana.
Mary, would you step up here because the people at home won't be able to hear you?
I marched by myself to defeat that 4 years ago.
You don't have to get that close, it'll take care of it.
And then they had a bylaw meeting, of which I was not aware. I'm not still aware of the members, although I know there's 5 pieces of property available for marijuana, but there's a middle school on a swamp that we're going to pay $1 million to tear down and build another middle school in 4 years. I am sure marijuana will not take 4 years. It certainly didn't take long for the bylaw committee to overturn something that I don't think everyone in Whitman was for. And I'm not swayed by all this, whether, well, they fix the roads, will they do this? I quite frankly don't care about the roads. I don't care. I only care about kids. I spent 30 years teaching, okay, in New York City. I care about, and I don't tell me they won't get it. My granddaughters tell me they're smoking marijuana and vaping in the high school now as we speak during the day. So I am very, and it's profit. This is profit. This is not something that is just nice thing to do. And it's all around. It's in Brockton, which they refer to as a third world country, which I especially can't stand. My daughter works there. I really cannot stand that. Whitman, do you really think you're going to get diversity here for employees? Look around.
Mrs. Fox, I'm going to ask you to just make your point.
You know, this is what's wrong with this place. There is no transparency here. I'd like to know what businessmen you're dealing with that were so cooperative. And are they going to own the business, lease the land, or what are they really going to do? They're going to make money. They're not going to give a damn about our kids because they're not their kids. And that's it. That is my point.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't have a gavel, but I have the truth, okay? And I know people don't like to hear the truth all the time. I'm sure you're making a good salary being a mouthpiece coming to all these meetings.
Mrs. Fox, I'm going to ask you to address the board or have a seat.
Me to what?
Either address the board or have a
I'm
seat.
addressing him because he came here to present and said questions were welcome. Here I am.
Mary, I just want to correct you. Peter is our town council. He's hired by the town to look at our interests and protect us in this process.
We had a lady as town council.
Well, he is one of the lawyers of that firm. He has nothing to do with the businesses that are seeking to locate here. And I just want to make that clear. Peter and I talk a lot. He's our attorney.
Is he looking out for Whitman
Yes,
and our children?
yes. He's looking out for Whitman. We have a law that allows certain things to be done. Our council is looking out for the best way to protect the town in our interest as those things happen, because we no longer have the ability to say no. So now if
What do you mean we can't say?
say yes, we
Town
say
meeting says
yes in a
yes.
way that makes sure
It's
that
not done yet.
we're not being overlooked.
Just said it's
Well,
not done yet.
they still have to go to the Board of Appeals for approval on their site.
State-
There's a
state-
whole process.
That's
They have to go to the Cannabis Control
So they know
Commission.
until the fat lady sings.
Correct.
Fat lady. Right here.
Thank you,
I've
Mrs.
gone up
Fox.
against more people and more ideas than you know. Thank you. I'm sorry if I took, I'm so sorry. Too bad I don't have a gavel, so I can't be as rude as you are.
I'll let you use my grandson's
I don't need
trumpet.
anything like that.
I'll give you mine if you.
No, I don't need that either.
Okay, well, Mrs.
I
Fox,
stand alone.
we're bound by what town meeting decided, and that was to approve the recreational sale of marijuana. So like Mr. Lineham just said, Mr. Sumner, Attorney Sumner is here this evening, making sure that
He did
what...
not at first introduce himself. I did not hear that he was an attorney or his name. I'm sorry. It wasn't written on here, and I did not know. I introduced myself right away,
Okay.
because that's the rule.
Well, what he's here for is making sure that this is being done the proper way, that new state laws are being followed. And at this point, that's all this board can do, is make sure that everything that's required by the town is done in the proper manner. And that's what our council is here to do, and that's what he advised us on, and that's why we have selectmen that are working with Attorney Sumner to make sure that the town's interests are protected in this. There's members of this board that share your sentiments regarding marijuana. However, they cannot stand up here and speak against what town meeting voted. But we must follow direction and make sure that it's done properly. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we do have to vote the social equity policy and procedure. Well, we don't have to today, but it might be prudent while our attorney's here.
Would you be seeking a vote?
Yeah, thank you. So I did not introduce myself, just for the record, and so everyone watching knows. My name is Peter Sumners. I'm an attorney at Murphy, Lamry, and Murphy. I work for Michelle McNulty, Town Council. And yeah, so I would recommend, if you're comfortable with the social equity policies and procedures, such as they are, that you go ahead and approve those, get those off the agenda. If you are comfortable with the host community agreement, there is nothing to approve per se. We are not asking you to authorize signature on it at this point, but if you have any changes that you believe need to be made between now and October 5th, when we know the AGO will have to get back to us on the bylaw, you can continue that to the next meeting. You can indicate now that you're comfortable with it, and we can have it ready for approval once the bylaw, if and when the bylaw is approved. So that piece would really be up to you, whether you want to address that now or continue it for further discussion at another meeting.
I would like to hold off on that until the bylaw is approved.
Okay.
So we'll postpone this vote?
Well, I would seek a motion to approve the, just so I have it right, the social equity policies and procedures as they relate to community host agreements.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks. Next item on the agenda is consider the appointment of an interim treasurer collector. Mr. Lyon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all know, and probably most of the people who tend to watch the meetings know, our treasurer collector, Mary Beth Carter, who's been with us since 2006, left the town of Whitman in order to accept a finance director position in another town, which left us with a significant gap. We explored engaging other persons to come in and assist on a temporary basis, reached out to a couple of retired treasure collectors, and for various reasons didn't pan out. What I failed to notice in this process was we have a homegrown candidate who has worked for us for close to 5 years in the capacity of town accountant, and he is prepared to take on that new responsibility of treasurer collector. As you know, the position is an elected one. We can appoint a treasurer collector until the next election. We have talked about, and I have recommended, and we'll be bringing specifics to our next meeting, about having a town meeting in November in order to address the process for appointing and engaging a treasurer collector. But I have every confidence that Ken Lytell, who's been serving as our accountant, will be an appropriate selection for the treasurer collector role. I'm asking that the board consider appointing Ken as of November 1st to the position of acting treasurer collector, to be compensated at the base rate of the former treasurer collector. We have arranged for some additional coverage from Mary Beth Carter, who was kindly offered to give us some assistance during the transition. And I've also spoken with our auditors to clarify what our process will be. Ken will be working until, hopefully until the end of October, closing our fiscal year. Once that is complete, he will be moving over to the other role. It is a specific legal requirement that the town accountant not be a treasurer collector of the community as well, because those are checks and balances. If for some reason we're not able to complete that process by October 31st, I would still like to move ahead, and I would engage an outside accounting firm to assist us in completing that process. I'd like to introduce Ken. Ken, if you'd step up, please. As I said, he has served as our town accountant. He's lived through the nightmare of accounting for COVID costs. We'll be balancing those for probably the next 2 or 3 years, but like I said, I have every confidence in his ability to do the job.
I think when we all know that when we hired Ken, he's been world class. His work performance is fantastic. It's a shame to lose him as the accountant. But I absolutely think it seems like the most logical choice at this time to appoint him to such an important role and we know he's gonna bring the same quality of work to that position as he has in the accountant's role.
So do you need a motion?
Yes.
We need a motion to
I'll make
appoint.
that motion.
I'll second it.
A couple questions, if I may.
All right, so the motion would be to appoint. We have a motion and a second to appoint Ken Lytell, interim town treasurer collector. Discussion, Mr. Salvucci.
Yes, Frank, do we have someone that can be in the accountant's office that can handle, because there's usually 2 people in the accountant's office, Ken and his assistant?
Well, that's why I asked that the appointment be November 1st.
Okay.
Gives Ken time to wrap up the work that he's doing now. I have confirmed with Eric Kirscher that if we need outside assistance periodically, they're prepared to provide it for us. But once we start that second process, which is we're now going to be looking for an accountant.
Right.
I expect that we'll begin that process pretty soon as well.
Okay, and you're saying we'll have a town meeting to possibly see if we can change, town meeting will allow us to change the treasurer collector as going from an elected position to an appointed position?
Well, this is a twofold process. We need a vote of town meeting to present the question to the voters at the annual town election.
Okay.
So the meeting in November, and the meeting will be more than just the recommended change. There'll be budget issues that we're going to address. As probably everyone knows, the challenges, the financial challenges to staffing and keeping people today are just crazy. We've had to make some adjustments as a community in hiring that will require supplemental appropriations. And I think the town would be best served by presenting that as a special long before we ask people to vote a new annual budget, so that everything is in place, the costs are identified, and we're ready to move forward. In May, assuming that the town approves the request to reclassify, the ballot will include a question: should the town make the treasurer collector position an appointed one? And there'll be a lot of time to talk about all the reasons why you would want to do that. And there'll be some concerns from some people: hey, I get to vote now, why would I want to change that? The treasurer collector is one of the most critical positions that any town has. He or she is responsible for handling over $43 million in taxpayer money from year to year. They're responsible for investing it, and they're responsible for issuing payments and receiving payments to the town. And it requires a skill set that not just anybody can do. Ken has a background, he is an accountant by education. I believe he has a degree from BC. And he's demonstrated his knowledge. In fact, Randy and I were the team that selected an accountant when our former accountant retired. And what made Ken rise to the top was the fact that half a year before he even applied to us for a job, he had taken training classes that are available for municipal accounting that are not normally taught at a college, but are provided by associations in Massachusetts. So he's well-rounded, and if we need to make an argument, we'll make it based on the facts.
Okay, the process stops at town meeting, or does it have to go to the state?
Town meeting authorizes the ballot in May, assuming that the voters agree in the majority to reclassify the position. We then go to the state for home rule, and the legislature will pass a home rule statute to change the position in Whitman from elected to appointed.
Okay, I guess, Ken, do you live in Whitman?
I do.
Oh, good, okay. Then you can run if they don't change it.
We are looking to appoint Mr. Lytell to interim town treasurer collector.
I think we had a...
We've got a
We have a
motion.
motion and a second. We've had discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And that's effective November 1.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you for the opportunity too.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Ken.
Next order of business, consider the appointment of Michael Cogran to full-time custodian within our town hall union.
Michael currently serves as a maintenance technician. As you know, the gentleman that previously held this position has been appointed facilities director, which creates a vacancy. I am asking the board to appoint Mr. Cogran to fill that position. I am following the guidelines that appear in the contract. Even though he works for the town, he is not a member of the union. When he becomes a member of the union, he starts at his level step 1. I will be looking into revisiting some part of that in sense of fairness. He's been employed 6 years, and I think there should be some flexibility to not treat him as a new employee. So I'll be bringing that back to the board at a later date.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have more further
Quick
discussion.
question. This, I assume, comes as a recommendation from the new facilities manager?
It does.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, in the last order of business, for open session, National Opioid Program. Frank.
As you all know, the state has participated in a national opioid mitigation lawsuit. The settlement involves payment of sums of money to communities based on the impact that the opioid addiction has caused those towns. I've heard numbers kicked around from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in this settlement expectation. I could tell you we got our first check for $3,500, and I was underwhelmed. I have reached out to the group, and I've asked them to provide me with more information as to how this program works, how it's calculated, and what we can expect in the future. But I wanted to let you know that we did participate, and we are now in line to receive funds.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for working on that. All right, seeing that has exhausted our open meeting business, we're going to have to move into executive session. The executive session will be in accordance to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, being all recording secretaries, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body as declared by the chair.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Kane?
Yes.
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 And I will vote yes. We will be coming out only to adjourn. Any votes will be announced the next meeting. Thank you.